Welcome back for another episode of Adoption in Focus. Natalie is joining us today to talk about her experiences of being an adoptive mother to 3 children. Natalie talks to us about the adoption process, early permanence, and contact between siblings. Natalie, can you tell us a little bit about you and your family?
Yeah, so there's myself and my wife, Holly, and we have 3 boys. The eldest has just turned 9, and then a 6-year-old and a soon-to-be next week 3-year-old, so 2 at the moment.
Wow, so 3 children all under 10.
Yep. Crazy household, and 2 dogs as well.
Just to throw them into the mix.
Absolutely. Can't forget them.
So, how did you find stage 1 and stage 2 of your adoption process?
So we've been through it twice, because we adopted the 2 about 6 years ago now. I think it was 2018. Yeah, so we went through the process in 2017, stage 1 and stage 2, which was obviously you're nervous and you're coming into it, and we didn't know what to expect. And it was all face to face, pre the COVID times, so everything we did was face to face. And I think for us it was you do a lot of soul searching anyway, but it was really informative, and just pitched at the right level for us, and kind of gave us everything we needed, in terms of the training, but then also the support from our social worker at the time, and really getting to know them. I think that was, they do become your best friend because they know probably more about you than some of your friends or family do, and the discussions that you have. So for us, we really enjoyed it, and enjoyed kind of what it entailed in terms of, really looking at yourself and how you'd be, and really what you're open to, and what why you're in the, why you are adopting, and what have you. So for us, that was, we really enjoyed, probably every part of it. We were nervous at stages, but we enjoyed all of it. And then when we came back in, when there was another sibling, we obviously went through the stages again, slightly different, because we didn't probably need to cover everything that you do at stage 1 and stage 2, because we're already adopters. And that was done virtually as well, because that was back in 2021, end of 2021. Common dates, it just seems crazy. And so that was done virtually, which again was fine. We did notice there was some changes in terms of the way it was done and things that you covered, but a good opportunity to re-engage with some of that stuff that maybe you'd forgotten about from some of the training. But definitely the connections that we made being face to face was definitely better. The stage when we did all of it virtually was, we didn't find that as engaging, if you know what I mean, even though you just can't, can you, in the same way. So
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And we are making a move so there's more face to face now, in recognition, it builds up your support network, making those connections, doesn't it?
Yeah. We still, from the first time, we still have connections and friends with people from that, that as a support. So yeah, definitely it was a huge difference. But overall, really good and really positive, a great, to go through, I think.
And am I right in thinking that you and Holly considered early permanence?
Yeah, so ours was a bit of a different, so we did early permanence, and we decided to do early permanence, right from the word go, just because we knew we wanted siblings.
Yeah.
And we wanted to, through advice from Kate, who was our social worker at the time, we really wanted for us to put ourselves in the best position to see kind of what would then happen, so because we wanted siblings at the time, we got advice, and And then maybe that situation where there is an older sibling who's already ready for adoption, but a younger sibling may either have just been born and not
Mm.
ready for that. So that was why we did it. And I think we're big believers in kind of fate. So we were like, right, okay, we're going to put ourselves in, do whatever we need to do
Mhm.
to make the process for matching and everything easier,
Yeah.
so that was kind of our decision why we did that, was just to put ourselves in that best position. And also you gain a lot more from the, some stuff from the earlier permanence process that you maybe don't think about. So any of
Mm.
that knowledge and what have you really helped us, and wanted, like I said, to put ourselves in that position to be open to whatever everyone what might come our way, really.
Because there's no telling, is there, that when you get into family finding what will
No,
happen.
no, exactly.
What was approval, taking a step back
Yeah.
from before family finding?
Mm.
What was approval panel like? How did you feel? How did you find it?
I mean, there's no getting away from it. You're going to feel nervous. At the end of the day, you're kind of
Yeah.
being, you're being assessed, and you're, um, you know, being asked lots of questions. But I suppose, when you get to that stage, you're prepared and you're ready, and your social worker and the people around you, you're kind of prepped and ready for that. So I think you feel you're going into it armed with with the information, and armed with what you want to talk about. So that's how, again, like, kind of we approached it in that way, and that actually, yeah, let's kind of basically sit and be a sponge to everything, and then we've got the answers, almost, to me. So I think, and the actual,
Yeah.
people, they're not there to trip you up. It's like going into if you've got a good interviewer, and a good interview is not there to trip you up. They want to get to know you. So that what it was like. There wasn't that feeling of of an interview in that way. It was, there was an informal side of it. We could talk, and kind of like get into things, really, and get the panel get to know us, and the other way around. So I think that's how we found it. And obviously we've been through that twice now. And yeah, like I said, there's no getting away. If you're always going to be nervous,
Of
but
course.
once you get to that stage, you are fully prepared. And like I said, we've had great social workers helping us through that. So that that for us was key.
So you were approved, and
Mm.
then how did you become matched originally with
Yeah.
your two eldest? What was that like? How did that happen?
So I don't know if this has changed now, but at the time, once you got to a certain stage through the process, you could go on Linkmaker.
Yeah.
And so that's what we did. We chose to do that. And we were approached through Linkmaker, outside of
Oh,
area. And again, at the time when we were on Linkmaker, and I think we got quite a lot of approaches
right.
through that. And me and Holly, we approach things very differently. I kind of sit back and wait or whatever, whereas Holly, like, yeah,
Straight in.
she she's straight in. And we got to the stage with somewhere they'd send us the profiles and what have you. Which obviously is really tough,
Mm.
to me. And you kind of want to be open to everything, and it is really tough. But we read a few profiles and went backwards and forwards a few times with family finders. I think the key thing for us at that stage, and the bit of advice that I always remember, was probably in stage one through our social worker, and it was around what we feel that we could cope with.
Yeah.
And what we wanted to do is, actually, we didn't want to narrow our, sounds awful, your search or
No.
whatever. We didn't want to narrow those opportunities. So we were open. We wanted a sibling group. We didn't go, right, we want to they've got to be, we want them, we're under twos or anything like that. I think we kind of said sibling group, under fives, and we're open to anything because we felt that we could offer, children,
Mm.
from either tricky backgrounds or hard to place. We were open to that because, we believed in the support and everything around us. So that was quite
Yeah.
key. And if we hadn't, now looking at when I say we believe in fate, we were approached by a family finder outside of area from up north, and if we hadn't been open to that family finder may not have been able to approach
Yeah.
us. We kind of wouldn't have been open, we wouldn't have, our profile maybe wouldn't have come up at that
Yeah.
time. So, and then, like I said, even though we'd read through a few others, it wasn't until that family finder contacted us, and Holly, and I can always remember being in a meeting, she said, "Oh, you need to read this." And I was like, okay. And I think I was away with work at the time. And so I didn't even get to read it that night. The next day she was like, right, and we're actually traveling. We're traveling up north to a family wedding. And she was like, right, do it now. I'm going to drive in the car. You read through it now. Um, and, and I was like, right, okay. And by that stage, when you've read quite a few things, you you go to the pages that you want to find out most about first of all, which is what I did. And Holly, and I could just tell Holly felt quite different about these boys, even just on paper. And so I read those. I was like, okay, yeah. And our eldest was classed as quite hard to place. He's had a real kind of tough start. So, and we were reading through that, and nothing's kind of putting you off, even though it's quite
Yeah.
tough. And then it wasn't until I went to the front pages, and actually we realised actually they actually were born in the same town as me.
Why?
And we read that. I read, and Holly hadn't really picked up on that because her geography is absolutely rubbish. And that was just like, wow, when you have that moment of like, oh,
That
blimey, there's
connection,
something.
that there's
Yeah,
something. Yeah.
absolutely. Even just at that stage on paper,
Why?
definitely. And there was no going back from there for
That
us.
was it.
That was, yeah, that was definitely it. Yeah, so we found that. I said, and it was quite a quick process for
Mm.
us. We went from stage one to placement in about 9 months
That
at
is
that time.
fast. That
Yeah,
is
yeah, it was really
fast.
fast. Yeah,
There's a
but
lot to
yeah,
be said, isn't there, for being open, but
yeah,
also realistic as well.
yeah,
And like you said, you go to a certain page in the profile because that's the information that
yeah,
you want to know. Because it's important, if you feel you can't parent that child or those children, to be able to say that, because it's lifelong and it's important to be realistic.
yeah. Which is what we'd found with some of the other profiles that we'd read. And we felt um kind of comfortable saying that,
Mm.
saying that and sometimes you can't even say why, in some ways it just didn't, we didn't feel it. And then again, we kind of said to ourselves all the way through, trust the process, because that's again something that we've been talked about, spoken about at stage one very early on around that whole process piece. So and thankfully we did.
And it worked.
Yeah, yeah,
It was a little bit different for you and Holly, wasn't it, in terms of after you were matched, that
yeah,
whole introductions process that we talk about on training. I think it felt a little bit, or was a little bit different for you, wasn't it? Do
yeah.
you mind telling us about that?
No, not at all. So we, even though we had done early permanence, both the boys were ready to, they were ready the adoption orders. So early permanence didn't kind of come into it at that point. And we kind of met. I remember we went and met with foster carer, and that was just amazing straight away. And yeah, and that meeting, I can remember every single part of it. Some of the things that she said to us
Right.
that still resonate massively with us now. And then we got set a date then for panel, and that the process to kind of go beyond that. And I think it was probably about a month before, maybe a bit longer, but a month before we were due to go to a matching panel. And I remember being in a meeting and Holly was ringing me over and over again. And then she messaged me saying, "Can you talk?" And I was like, "No." And I was in like this kind of quite important meeting. I was like, quickly said, "I'll be on a break soon." And she said, "Can you finish work on Monday?" And I was like,
Pardon?
well, I thought, right, okay, I need to come out of this meeting and have a conversation. Luckily, my boss was with me in the same meeting, so we went on a break, had a conversation, and unfortunately, the foster carer was unwell, and needed kind of an operation, like
Wow.
pretty urgently. So um so therefore that's when the early permanence piece came in. So thankfully we had
Right.
done the early permanence because she needed an operation, and if we hadn't done early permanence, our boys then would have had to go somewhere else for a month before
Wow.
we'd gone to matching panel, which obviously we didn't, nobody wanted.
No.
And unfortunately there was, the foster carer had known this throughout the whole process, but she didn't want the boys to go somewhere else because she was so, we had this connection. She really, she didn't want them to have another move. And so she kind of held on as long as possible. And she hadn't been told that we'd done early permanence training.
Oh.
And then as soon as she found this out, which was at literally this day, she kind of confessed to the social worker that she needed an operation. So can things move quicker?
Right.
And so that's what happened. And I think that was on the Wednesday. The Monday we went up north. We went up north, met with the foster care again on the Tuesday, and then we started the introductions and met the boys on the Wednesday.
Right.
And we had that first meeting on the Wednesday, and then on Saturday morning we drove home. So it was a very short, introductions process, which was just, yeah, like I say, it was very different. We were, it was, luckily the foster carer was then on hand, even though she was in hospital. She asked all our questions. She was there on the end of the phone should we need anything. But it was a bit like, wow, you know what I mean? We suddenly met these two boys, 3-year-old and not quite 1-year-old, on the Wednesday, and then Saturday morning they're in the back of the car and we're driving back down south. Well, back
Back
to
home.
Birmingham.
Right.
But it was, again, it was amazing, and they were so precious, those few days, and we just literally asked all the questions we could, even when we weren't then with the boys. When the foster carers could speak to us in those 3 days, we just
Right.
found out as much as we possibly could about routine, about everything, and even like made sure we kind of took photos of like the bedroom, because we wanted to make sure there was similar things in their bedroom when they came home, and our family were back at our house prepping the house for us, because we just didn't have, we'd done as much as we could, but we didn't have the food in, we didn't have the things in that we maybe needed, that you kind of spend the time doing. So so it was a real quick but again amazing process to go through. And I can just always remember, and I suppose it's like people when you bring a baby home from hospital, I can remember getting in the car, and it was a tough handover because the foster carer was so, she was just amazing. She loved, and she loves the boys so much,
No.
but because of how emotional it was, and she didn't expect it to be so quick as well, she wanted that bit more time with them. It was a real tough, kind of handover. Not for them. We made sure they didn't know, but we knew, and we knew how hard it was for her. And then when we got in the car and we're driving, it felt like rabbit in headlights. We were
They're
just
in
like,
the back of the car.
oh, yeah, who's put those two there?
Why?
Yeah. So it was a bit, it was amazing, but
A whirlwind. So,
yeah, absolutely.
what was it like in those early days when they came home?
Luckily, it was really sunny. That's one thing that we do remember. It was June. It was really sunny. which meant that we could be outside, not like, kind of stuck in the house. And those first few weeks were just, I look back on them now and I'm like, wow, how amazing they were. It was just us four. The dogs weren't at home at that point, because we wanted to introduce them at the right time. So it was just us four in, the beautiful sunshine, and it was like we were all kind of thrown into this situation together,
Oh.
and it was really, yeah, really kind of precious. And the thing that we were really, really a bit obsessed about was their routine,
Okay. Yep.
and make sure we literally matched their routine as much as we possibly could. And we even had like certain coloured things in their bedroom that they'd had. We made sure that was the case. So it wasn't. So they just had that familiarity. And I always remember it was a Saturday we drove home, and what one of their normal routines was that they would walk, because she has an older daughter who they would take to school in the morning, only down the road, so they'd always walk to school. So I remember the Sunday morning. I mean, the boys at that point were up at 5 o'clock anyway, so we
Ooh.
did that, and then at like 10 to 9, which is what the time they'd normally be walking to school, we went, right, well, let's go for a walk up the road. And it was 10 to 9 on a Sunday morning. We said, oh, we'll walk to Aldi, because we still needed to get some bits. It was only up the road for us. So we walked up to Aldi, and at 10, it wasn't open.
It's 10 o'clock.
Yeah, until 10 o'clock. Yeah, so we got to Aldi, it wasn't open. We're like, okay, so where shall we go now then? And I remember, because we'd been obsessed with this, keeping this routine that they go out of the house at the same time and what have you. But we always laugh about it now that we were those people waiting outside Aldi, for it to open, which we've never done before. So yeah, those first few weeks of that, right, like I said, they were really, really precious, and really kind of, it felt very much, like I say, like we were this team kind of that have been thrown together into this situation that we needed to kind of work out, and get to know each other really.
I can't imagine how chaotic and exhausting it was. But
Yeah, I think one of the things we often talk about is, again, me and me and Holly, my wife, we're very different the way we approach things. And I'd gone through a lot of oh my god, what we're doing, or beforehand, and like kind of just going, I can't believe there's gonna be two boys in this house. And I'd gone through, I'm very much like that. And Holly's very kind of, she's like quite laid back, and she sits back and does things in that way. And we're like, I'd gone through all of that, so I felt like when the boys came home, I was like, oh, okay.
that's it now.
Whereas Holly, she then, in those first few weeks, I think, cried every single night,
Right.
because she found that's when the emotion really hit her. Not that any regrets, not that we'd done
No.
anything that we shouldn't have, but she felt, she was like, for her, she was like, I feel like I've removed those boys from what they know, and it was a real strange feeling for her. She said, I feel like I've taken the boys out of what they know,
Mm.
because they attached to that foster care. They've been with her for almost a year, and so she found that, like, when the boys were in bed, she'd then literally emotionally break down, at first,
Oh.
and would be going, thinking of, she felt a sense of guilt in some ways. It was a really bizarre feeling for her, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's not unusual, but it's really
Mm.
hard because these are children who the local authority are looking for a forever home for. But when you see the connections they've made in foster care, the progress,
Yeah,
some adopters really do feel like, why have we done this if they were
yeah,
okay there? But
yeah, exactly.
there wasn't a guarantee that foster carer could have offered those boys, your
Yeah,
boys,
yeah,
stability for the rest of their
yeah,
childhood. It's
absolutely. Yeah, yeah, and that was quite that was quite key for us. Is that is you know is just, and again, we talked about, we, I suppose it's one of the things you got to be, we talked about as a couple, you know what I mean. And I think because we're, in some ways, we've gone through it differently, that kind of worked in a lot of ways.
yeah, you
You
propped
know,
each other up at the right
yeah,
times
yeah,
for the other.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
So they're home.
Yes,
It's all been a whirlwind. I think you mentioned before that they had siblings and there was contact?
Yeah. So when they first came home, we'd been made aware that birth mum was pregnant again, and then I think we hadn't even gone through. I think we hadn't even gone through the panel. We were still effectively foster to adopt, early permanence at the time. We were still under as foster to adopt carers, and then so they came home in the June, and then the another boy was born in August.
Right.
And so we were told that another baby had been born, and it was a bit of a funny flippant comment by the social workers of saying, "We you can come to the hospital if you're interested in like kind of taking him almost
Huh?
because we're a foster to adopt." And we were like, "Wow, we're 6 weeks in
Yeah,
here."
give me a second. Yeah.
Yeah. And then I think for the next, and we didn't do that. You know, we all through that, as hard as it was, we just prioritised the two boys at the time because they're 6 weeks in, nowhere near settled, anything like that. And then for the next few months, then we're approached a few times of whether we would consider adopting him as well.
Wow.
And that was probably the hardest thing we've ever been through, is deciding what to do, whether we could offer it, whether it was the right for all of us, him, our boys, us, everything. And yeah, so we didn't expect to be having to go through that kind of decision while still, getting to grips with being a family and parents and what have you. So like I say, it was probably the hardest thing we've been through. Lots of talking, and again, me and Holly approached it quite differently, and Holly is she's just naturally very big hearted, and so she was like, we'll make it work, or whatever at times. And even though she was unsure, and I was a bit more pragmatic and a bit like, it just doesn't feel like we can.
Yeah.
And so it's probably the one time that we were at different places. But then through time talking, we kind of came to the same conclusion that it wouldn't be right for us, for the boys or for him, that we'd committed to these boys. We'd just had the middle one's on 1 year birthday. There was still so much that they needed, that we thought bringing a newborn baby or a younger sibling into that, it wouldn't have given them what they needed at that time. And we probably couldn't have offered him neither as well. There wasn't any assurances on his health and lots of different things, even though, like I say, that was, it's probably the hardest thing we've ever done. So we always advocated then and kept saying that we would love to have contact in the future. And then he was he was adopted, but that fell through. So they came back to us again.
Oh.
So we had to go through it all again. And again, because we believe in fate, it was like, well, maybe that's why, so we did that again. But we felt that was, we're still in the same position. But it just wasn't right for us at the time. And then luckily we were told then he was adopted, and that they would welcome contact in the future, which obviously was huge for us and really important to be able to do that.
I can't imagine how hard that whole situation would have been.
Yeah. And I think Natalie as well, we got sent videos and photos, and
Oh, that's that's
which was like,
so emotive
when you see
isn't
that,
it?
you've got that family resemblance there. This, it was, it was, it was really tough at the time.
I bet. But I think if you're having to try and convince yourself that you just make it work, or
Yeah.
it's about the messages it would have given your two oldest at that time, as well as that
Yeah.
you've been here 6 weeks and now here's somebody new, and
Yes.
that's hot as an adult. We're thinking 6 weeks and I'm not ready.
Yeah.
Imagine for those two little ones how
Yeah.
that would have felt.
Yeah. And they needed our undivided attention, you know.
Yeah.
They're already sharing it because there's two of them, you know.
Yeah,
So,
and that comes with some challenges, I'm
yeah,
sure.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So that, you know, it kind of worked out, you know, it was the right thing to do, even though it was the hardest thing to do, I think.
Yeah. And there's contact, is it adult to adult or?
No, so the the contact only, like, the actual, we meet up as, you
Oh,
know, so
wow.
the boys have all met, but that only started last year, and actually even the letterbox contact was very intermittent, and it was a real, it was hard because we'd agreed letterbox, and then we've been told, you know, like, suggest a separate email address if you want to have that more email contact. So that's what we'd done, and then that it wasn't kind of being responded to through letterbox. So I was on the phone because I don't let things lie, and I'm so we were told to put an email address in, and then we were told that was being removed at the other end, this email address. I was like, but that's what we're encouraged to do.
Mhm.
And then we did get a letterbox letter back. I think we got one, and then then it hit like COVID times and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Um, and then which was amazing. And then we wrote back again, and then we didn't get anything back. But then it was meant to be 2 a year, so we just carried on doing it. So we did.
Oh,
So I think we wrote another further 3 letterbox letters, but weren't getting any response, and we were a bit like, oh. You know, well, anyway, there must be a reason. And then we had more contact then because obviously there was another sibling born, which I'm sure you're going to come to because we've got 3. But
yeah.
and then anyway, we suddenly then got an email. The other adopter hadn't received, then been passed on. She got
Oh,
like 4 letters all
no.
at once. She thought we were writing back, so she didn't
Oh,
write.
gosh.
But they hadn't been passed on, so she got 4 at once from letterbox contact.
How sad.
And so then it moved. You know, we were on email contact, and then we exchanged WhatsApp. Then we had a couple of video calls just as adult to adult.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to push it too much, or you know, both of us, you could just tell. And then we said, well, shall we, you know, in the half term last year, actually it was last October, shall we meet up? And we did, and yeah, it was amazing. And for us, it was personally, it was just amazing to see him and how happy he is, and what an amazing, you know, mum he's got.
Yeah.
And for the boys, it was just, yeah, to see them all together was just, it's lovely, and we've met up twice since. So
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
I bet it was important for you after that whole kind of emotive roller coaster of should we, shouldn't we, to see that actually, you know, he's thriving, he's
yeah,
happy, the
absolutely,
decision was right for all of
yeah,
the children.
yeah. And actually, he has had some health problems, so he needed her, you know what I mean, because that
Yeah.
would have been really hard for us to manage, you know, in terms of other hospital visits or appointments or whatever, you know what I mean. It would have been
Cool.
really hard for us to do. Obviously, you do it when you need to, but he needed her. He needed,
He
you
needed
know,
undivided.
absolutely,
Yeah.
yeah. So it was, yeah, yeah, it was amazing, and he's great, and it's
Yeah,
great to see, like you say, him thriving, and he's where he should be. You know what I mean?
that's so lovely. And you've made reference to it, so we,
Mm,
we can't not talk about it, Natalie. You
no,
had your two boys,
yes,
and then there was a bit of deliberation about their brother that we've spoken
yeah,
about. But it didn't stop there, did it?
no, no. So we got a phone call 2021, saying there'd been another baby born, and obviously we weren't aware that there was pregnancy, or you know, we wouldn't have been baby born. Okay, and the first question was, would you be interested in adopting? And I was like, do we know any more about the baby that's born?
That's true.
And at that point, we didn't know whether it was a boy or a girl. We
Ah,
didn't know anything. And they were kind of just pulling everything, you know, everything together. So anyway, fast forward, and we spoke about it at that time, and you already kind of know in your mind, because when we're in this situation, we were aware that it's probably gonna, that phone call will come, probably. So at times you kind of, as a family or as a couple, we talk about it, and so we then obviously talked about it and said, actually, we'll we will definitely consider it. Open to discussions to see what's what, because we're quite aware it's not just a given, what I
Yeah,
mean.
yeah.
And obviously at the time they said obviously they'll need to approach the other boys. She's a single adopter, mum. Okay, fine. And then we didn't hear anything for a good few weeks.
Wow.
And it was like, okay, what's going on here? And then anyway, we heard, and it said that she would consider it as well. So we were like, okay, we effectively will, even though it's something we'd want to do, we'd happily kind of take a step back, because that gives the opportunity to have that sibling relationship. If that, we don't want to kind of go in. For us, we didn't want to go. We had no contact with them at the time, but we didn't want to go in like almost direct competition.
Yeah.
And we, our boys had each other, so if that gives an opportunity for a sibling relationship there, then that feels right. But then again, it went really quiet for a long while. So we just presumed that was all going forward, but we hadn't been told. We hadn't been kept in the loop or anything. It wasn't great. And then, that was he was born in the April, and then it was around about November time we got contact that we got told that would we reconsider, because because she'd had to kind of pull out the process, and that it wasn't right for her at the time. So we were like, okay, right.
That's
Wow.
just such a gap.
Yeah, where we'd kind of got our head around it a bit. So we're like, right, okay, well, on we go again then. Let's yeah. So, and we were like, okay, time is kind of ticking on here, and he was in foster care, again, great foster placement, but and so we then quickly, I think, as you know, we then moved through stage 1 and stage 2.
Yeah,
very,
rapid. Yeah.
very, very quickly again. So to try and reduce the amount of time, that he was in foster care. And obviously we had to speak to our boys about it. That was in November, and we waited till after Christmas to talk to the boys.
Yeah.
About it and approach it with them. Obviously they were, a little bit older now and a lot more awareness and a lot more understanding. And luckily they have quite a good awareness of their life story. They're aware of kind of what's what their background is and what their journey has been, which made that conversation easier. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they were straight away delighted, and
Really.
yeah, they really wanted to kind of have another little brother, and so that's kind of what we did.
Wow. So
Yeah.
when did he come home?
So he came home we met him at the end of March 2022, and he came home 2nd of April. We had 2 weeks. We had the full 2 weeks of introductions with him, which again was great, but also quite tricky because of our boys. So we had to find obviously people to have the boys, and when we first went and met and had that time just with him, and so it was a real logistical nightmare.
I bet.
And it especially unsettled our eldest.
Having you away, was that? Yeah.
Just that whole, he really wanted the little brother, but it really unsettled him and dysregulated him, and his behavior, it went a bit into a whirlwind, lots of meltdowns. Luckily, he didn't kind of relate it to that, but he knew that there was change ahead, and for him, that's really hard to handle. So he was in the lead up to it. It was really, really tough for him. Which at that time you're like going, "Oh God, are we doing the right thing?" Because of how much it unsettled him. And at times, I think he felt that there was going to be change for him, that he wasn't,
Right.
that he was kind of going to move somewhere. That's what I think it kind of unearthed for
Bless
him
him.
at that time. So yeah, he came home in the April, and that process, and especially for our eldest being part of that process, has definitely helped him understand his journey better,
Right.
and has almost settled him more,
Yeah, I
because
get
it
that.
didn't change for him.
Yeah.
It was he was still, we were still his family forever, so I think that actually it's kind of helped him understand, and well, both of them understand their journey a bit more.
Yeah. Brought them a bit more clarity about
Yeah,
why it's
yeah,
permanent and how it works.
yeah. Like he said to us, I think when the youngest, when he first was at home and we were all at home together, and I think he was crying because he was 10 months old at the time. He was crying and whatever. And the eldest said, "Do you think he's missing his foster carer?"
Oh,
And I was like, "Oh, maybe," because TJ, well, the eldest was 7 at the time, and I was like, well, he could be, but I think he's just hungry and a bit tired. But yeah, he could be because, we talked about it, and he came up with that, and it was almost like that's probably something that he then could see that he'd experienced, but couldn't vocalize it because he was younger at the time. So that was
wow.
that was quite amazing, really.
It is incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible.
Mm.
So what's life like now as a parent to three? Three boys?
3
What's it
boys.
like, Natalie?
Yeah. It's pretty full on, pretty manic. And yeah, when I think we had a bit of a honeymoon period of like having 3 at first,
Mm,
and then after a few months, you kind of go, "Wow, this is like, um,
hardcore.
this is hardcore. This is like, yes, you're outnumbered,
Yeah.
um, and what have you, and it's just manic,
Mm,
but equally amazing. You know what I mean? And seeing their bond, the bond from when they first met, was just kind of unbelievable.
really.
It just was right. You know what I mean? And seeing them kind of grow as brothers together is always is a privilege to kind of be part of, really.
That's beautiful.
But it is manic. It
I
is,
bet. I
and
can't
tough at
imagine.
times. It's not. It's not
It's not
all. It's
all
not all wonderful.
happy,
It
is
is
it?
hard work.
Yeah.
When you're managing, especially like we've got the eldest has quite a lot of trauma and lots of things, and as he's getting older, that's we're managing that. So which is different to the other two in a lot of ways.
Mm,
So yeah, it's tough. It is tough at times.
I bet.
Yeah, and it's definitely testing.
I can't imagine. And it makes me tired thinking about it for you. But
Yeah,
I suppose
yeah,
at different ages and stages,
yeah,
it does bring up different things for your
yeah,
children in different ways. And
yeah,
I guess you can never really foresee what's going to be a trigger or a problem or.
yeah, 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 definitely. And I think they just, um, that they just got on with it, and they were just amazing brothers straight away. And they it was us, really, and as you're going through it, you kind of go and you want to make sure that you're still giving them
Yeah.
um the time, and I suppose anybody that's parent to 2 or 3 or however many children, you do always kind of reflect and you say, oh, are they getting enough one-to-one attention, are they getting enough of this, and just managing that, and let alone the logistics of
Hmm.
club runs and pick up runs from school and all that kind of thing. You just want to make sure that you're giving them what they need, and but equally not give yourself a hard time with it because they're
Yeah.
doing okay. You,
Yeah.
you, you know what I mean? But you
Parental
do,
guilt is
yeah,
horrendous, isn't it?
you do look at that quite a lot, and but then you see them together and you're like, well, it's just that's how it's meant to be,
Yeah.
you know.
Any more, or do you think
No,
you're done? No, 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 an outright no. We're
a
done.
definite no. We're both on the same page with
Oh,
that. It is
brilliant!
a no. It is a no.
Family complete. That's it.
Absolutely, yeah. And obviously the fact that we have contact with their other,
Yeah,
the other sibling is just
it's
it's just
amazing.
amazing. And like I said, the first time seeing the 4 of them together, And it's like they just knew as well, you know what I mean? They just they're just great. And seeing our eldest, who, you know, does struggle with different things, but as a big brother, he's amazing. You know, he just is. That's when the caring and the empathy and whatever he really displays. It's the only time he does a lot of the time. Where he does. And when he first met the other sibling, he just kind of donned that role straight away. So it's amazing. You know, that bond is definitely
there.
it's just naturally there. Yeah, definitely.
That's brilliant. So
Yeah.
Natalie, you talked about that it's challenging, but it's equally as rewarding. Thinking about your whole kind of experiences, which I know is a lot to think about, but is there anything that you think, if any prospective or approved adopters are listening to this, anything that you wish you'd known going through that whole process that you could share?
I think for us, a huge thing is like your support and your network, and actually how I don't think you realise how important that is when you're going through it.
Right.
And ours has changed. You know, we've got some people that are still that kind of support network, but then we've met other people along the way that become that, you know. So ours is and obviously going through it twice, it did change. But that is just I don't think it's unequivocal how important that is, and also for us is the help and the support that is out there, and absolutely use it. Don't, you know, I think we've always been so open to look, you know, even calling adoption focus or whatever and going, look, this is what we're handling at the moment. Have you got any advice, or is there anything to, you know, that to us is vital, because we don't, you know, nobody knows exactly what the right thing to do is all the time, but sometimes that just gives you that little bit of advice, also reassures you that you're doing all right. And that I think that you know, you definitely need that. But I think that being open to that help, support and advice, and not being embarrassed to ask for it, I think is for us is massive. And that's what I'd say to anybody who's thinking about it. For one, it is amazing. It's hard work. Being a parent is hard work, but it is amazing. And we feel, and we often talk about this when we talk to anybody that's thinking about it, we feel kind of really privileged to be adopters. We do, because we feel privileged to be able to be part of their life. That's how it genuinely feels. Not all the time. Don't get me wrong. It is not all rose-coloured glasses all of the time. But as we're really proud to be adopters. You know, and hopefully the boys, and I know they talk about it, they're very open. They talk about the fact that they're adopted, and we talk about that really in a special way, that it's really special that why we're together.
And it's something to be celebrated, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I'd say the biggest thing is around is that being very open to the support, and ask questions and ask for advice at whatever stage it is. And like I say, your own support network as well, of actually really making sure that you do use them and choose them carefully.
What an amazing and busy family Natalie has. It was eye-opening to hear about the difficult decisions the couple had to make about siblings in need of adoption. But what was inspiring to listen to was how they kept their children's needs at the forefront of everything they did. Thank you, Natalie, for sharing your experiences with us. If you enjoyed this episode, then please do give us a review. We would love to hear your questions, or for you to join us on the podcast to share your experiences. You can get in touch with us by emailing podcast@adoption-focus.org.uk.